Have you ever worked so hard for your family that you slowly started losing the very people you were working for? In today's video, I'm sharing my real journey of living and working in the United States, and how one unexpected snow day forced us to stay home together, and unexpectedly saved our marriage, our family connection, and even my motivation to practice English again. A question in the snow. Working harder and harder for your family can feel noble, until one day you realize you barely sit in the same room together. That realization did not hit me during a business meeting or while reading a self-help book. It arrived on a silent winter morning in the United States, when the world outside my window was buried under fresh snow and my phone kept lighting up with one simple notification: Snow Day. If you live in America, you understand the weight of those two words. Schools closed. Offices delayed. Roads covered in ice. Life suddenly paused. For many families, a snow day feels cozy, almost magical. For me, that morning, it felt inconvenient. I had deadlines waiting. Emails stacked like unread chapters. Meetings scheduled. My calendar looked successful. Organized. Responsible. In the living room, my wife and children were sitting together, unexpectedly free. And strangely, we did not quite know how to be together. Let me rewind for a moment. I came to the United States with determination. I wanted stability. I wanted opportunity. I wanted to improve my English and build a secure life for my family. Like many immigrants, I believed deeply in hard work. In progress. In productivity. At first, everything felt new and exciting. The structure. The systems. The culture. Even the winter. The first heavy snowfall felt magical. I took pictures. I stepped outside just to feel the cold air on my face. But novelty fades. Excitement turns into routine. Routine quietly turns into pressure. My English improved, yes, but mostly in professional settings. Emails became faster. Meetings smoother. I learned phrases like "let's circle back" and "I'll follow up." My vocabulary grew sharper, more efficient. Yet something else was shrinking. Conversations at home became shorter. More functional. Did you pay the bill? What time is practice? I'll be late tonight. According to family psychology research, emotional connection weakens not because of conflict, but because of constant busyness. When the brain is always in task mode, it struggles to shift into emotional presence. The prefrontal cortex prioritizes solving problems, not sharing feelings. That was my life. Even my approach to learning English changed. In the beginning, I practiced slowly. I listened carefully to simple stories. I repeated sentences out loud. I enjoyed the rhythm of the language. Over time, impatience replaced curiosity. If I did not understand something immediately, I felt irritated. My brain wanted speed. Quick results. Immediate comprehension. Neuroscience tells us something important here. Chronic stress reduces cognitive flexibility. When stress hormones stay high, the brain becomes less open to learning. Language acquisition requires calm focus. Stress creates mental noise. So if you sometimes feel tired of practicing English or tempted to quit, it may not be laziness. It may be overload. That snowy morning, I did not think about neuroscience. I simply felt a quiet discomfort. The house felt different. Slower. My youngest child looked up at me and asked, "Dad, are you staying home today?" Such an ordinary question. Yet it landed heavily. I had options. I could work remotely. I could stay in my home office, continue answering emails, continue building the life I told myself we needed. Outside, snowflakes fell steadily. They did not rush. They did not compete. They simply descended, soft and patient. Inside, my thoughts moved fast. When was the last time we stayed home together with no schedule? When was the last time I listened to my wife without checking my phone? When was the last time English felt like connection instead of performance? Language is not just grammar and pronunciation. It is attention. It is tone. It is eye contact. Real English is not spoken perfectly, it is spoken present. Behavioral science shows that interruptions in routine can reset mental patterns. When the normal rhythm breaks, awareness increases. You see what you were too busy to notice. Looking at the white streets of America that morning, something became clear. I had been chasing security so intensely that I stopped experiencing the security I already had. I was providing for my family. But I was not fully with my family. Snow continued to cover the sidewalks, softening sharp edges. Cars moved slowly, carefully. The entire neighborhood seemed quieter, almost reflective. My wife walked into the kitchen and smiled. "It's a snow day," she said gently. "Let's just stay home. Let's just stay home." 5 simple words. Basic English. Easy to understand. Yet emotionally, they were complicated. Staying home meant slowing down. It meant no hiding behind productivity. It meant conversations longer than necessary. It meant presence. Many people believe success in America is about speed. Faster growth. Faster improvement. Faster language skills. But real growth often hides in stillness. Maybe you are also working long hours. Maybe you are learning English late at night, repeating sentences quietly while others sleep. Maybe you feel proud, but also tired. That morning, I stood between 2 choices. Open the laptop. Or close it. Outside, the snow kept falling, gently rewriting the landscape of our neighborhood. Inside, I was about to rewrite something more important. The way I defined success. And I did not yet realize that this unexpected snow day would slowly repair our family connection, and even change the way I practiced English forever. From arrival to adjustment. The first winter I experienced in the United States felt like stepping into a movie scene. Snow-covered rooftops. Streets looked clean and organized. Everything seemed structured, efficient, promising. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the place where hard work truly pays off. Relocating to America was not just a physical move. It was a psychological shift. New systems. New expectations. New rules, both written and unwritten. Even simple things felt complex at first. Opening a bank account. Understanding health insurance. Learning how credit scores work. Every form required careful reading. Every conversation required attention. And of course, there was English. I could communicate, yes. But understanding culture through language was different. In meetings, colleagues spoke quickly. Humor was subtle. Phrases like "let's touch base" or "we should grab coffee sometime" did not always mean what they literally said. American communication style values positivity and efficiency. People often soften disagreement. They smile while saying, "I'm not sure that's the best direction." Adjusting meant learning not just vocabulary, but tone. Cultural adaptation researchers describe this stage as integration stress. You are functional, but constantly processing. Your brain works overtime translating context, body language, unspoken meaning. That mental effort is invisible to others, but very real inside you. At the same time, the climate demanded adjustment. Winters were longer and harsher than I expected. Snow was beautiful in December. By February, it felt heavy. Driving required caution. Morning routines took longer. Cold air changes your mood. Studies show reduced sunlight can lower serotonin levels, affecting motivation and energy. Seasonal changes are not just aesthetic, they influence mental resilience. Still, I pushed forward. Work became my anchor. In America, productivity feels measurable. Hours logged. Goals achieved. Promotions earned. The system rewards visible effort. I admired that clarity. If you worked hard, you moved forward. So I worked harder. My English improved rapidly because I used it daily in professional settings. I practiced pronunciation during commutes. I listened to business podcasts. I repeated phrases quietly in my car. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity. Looking forward to collaborating. Slowly, I sounded more confident. But confidence in language does not automatically equal comfort in identity. At home, life was changing too. My wife was adapting in her own way. The children were absorbing American culture faster than we were. They corrected my pronunciation sometimes, gently, innocently. They understood school slang I had never heard before. That gap was subtle but noticeable. Immigrant families often experience a acculturation difference. Children adapt quickly. Parents carry old frameworks while learning new ones. It creates tension, not dramatic conflict, but small misunderstandings. Dinner conversations became shorter because we were tired. Not angry. Not disconnected intentionally. Just exhausted from adjusting. Psychologically, adaptation requires cognitive energy. When energy is limited, we prioritize survival tasks, work, bills, schedules. Emotional bonding quietly moves to the background. At first, I told myself this was temporary. Once we stabilized financially, once my English became fluent enough, once everything felt secure, then we would slow down. But stability is a moving target. The American dream can be inspiring. It can also be relentless. There is always another goal. a bigger house, a better school district, a stronger resume. And while I was improving professionally, something else was quietly fading: unstructured time together. Language learning also shifted during this phase. In the beginning, I enjoyed practicing with simple stories. I would read slowly, pause, repeat sentences, feel the rhythm of English. Later, efficiency replaced enjoyment. I focused on advanced vocabulary, faster comprehension, less repetition. Here is something cognitive science makes clear: mastery grows through spaced repetition and emotional engagement. When learning becomes purely performance-driven, retention decreases. The brain remembers better when meaning is attached. But meaning requires time. I rarely allowed time. One evening before that snow day, I noticed something small but important. My child was telling me about school. I nodded. I responded appropriately. But I could not recall the details later. My mind had been half occupied with work. That was not a language problem. That was presence. Living in the United States taught me resilience. It taught me independence. It taught me to navigate complex systems in a second language. But it also quietly taught me how easy it is to confuse busyness with progress. Adjustment is not a one-time event. It is layered. Climate, culture, communication, career, parenting, marriage, all shifting at the same time. By the second winter, snow no longer felt magical. It felt logistical. Drive carefully. Shovel early. Check forecasts. Prepare. That morning, the morning of the big snowstorm, everything I had built stood solid. Job stable. English stronger. Family under one roof. On paper, it looked like success. Yet something felt slightly off. Integration had happened externally. Internally, we were still negotiating balance. When the weather alert appeared on my phone, winter storm warning, I reacted practically. Check the schedule. Confirm work flexibility. Monitor road conditions. But beneath the practical thoughts, there was a quieter question forming. Had we adjusted to America, but lost rhythm with each other? The snowstorm was not just a weather event. It was a pause in momentum. And momentum had been driving our lives. Looking back now, I see that adjustment is not just about surviving a new country. It is about deciding what parts of that country's pace you will accept, and what parts you will slow down. That lesson had not fully arrived yet. It was waiting. Just outside the window. Under a sky heavy with snow. Building love in a new land. Love does not always begin with perfect grammar. Sometimes it begins with simple sentences spoken slowly, carefully, with a slight accent and a hopeful heart. When my wife and I first started building our life together in the United States, our English was practical. Not poetic. We used short sentences. Clear words. Are you okay? Did you eat? We will be fine. Those small phrases carried more meaning than any complicated vocabulary ever could. Starting a marriage in a new country is different from starting one in a familiar place. Everything around you feels unfamiliar: systems, neighbors, traditions. You are not only partners in love, you are partners in adaptation. In America, independence is valued deeply. People respect personal space. Couples often divide responsibilities clearly. Schedules matter. Time feels structured. At first, we admired that efficiency. We created shared calendars. We organized tasks. We planned carefully. But love does not grow from efficiency alone. In the early days, we spent evenings practicing English together. We watched simple TV shows with subtitles. We paused often. We repeated sentences. Sometimes we laughed at our pronunciation. Sometimes we misunderstood jokes and looked at each other confused. Those were beautiful moments. Research in relationship psychology shows that couples who learn new skills together build stronger emotional bonds. Shared challenge creates connection. When two people navigate difficulty side by side, the brain releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Learning English together was not just education. It was intimacy. We would sit at the small kitchen table, reading short stories aloud. Slowly. Patiently. If one of us struggled with a word, the other would gently repeat it. No judgment. Just support. Try again, she would say softly. And I would. That environment made English feel safe. At that time, our conversations were longer. Even simple topics became meaningful. Grocery shopping could turn into a discussion about American food culture. A visit to the park became a conversation about parenting styles we observed around us. We noticed differences. In the United States, parents encouraged independence early. Children expressed opinions openly. Teachers communicated directly. These cultural shifts required adjustment. We talked about everything. Marriage felt like teamwork. There is a concept in sociology called shared narrative. Couples who build a story together about their journey, especially migration, tend to develop resilience. They remind each other why they started. They reinforce meaning. Our shared narrative was clear. We came here for growth, opportunity, and family stability. And English was the bridge. I remember one winter evening before we had children. Snow was falling lightly outside. We made tea. The apartment was small but warm. She looked at me and said in simple English, "We are building something good." The grammar was not complex. But the truth was. In those early years, love felt active. Intentional. We checked in emotionally. We asked deeper questions. Are you happy? Do you miss home? Are you tired? Communication was not perfect, but it was present. Over time, as careers expanded and responsibilities increased, that simplicity changed. Professional English grew stronger. Emotional English grew shorter. Instead of "How do you feel?" conversations shifted toward "Did you finish that?" Instead of sitting together to practice listening exercises, we multitasked. One cooking. One answering emails. Psychologists describe this as microdisconnection. Not dramatic arguments. Not betrayal. Just small moments of missed attention. Over months and years, they accumulate. Language learning research tells us something similar. Fluency grows with repetition and meaningful interaction. Remove meaningful interaction, and language becomes mechanical. Our love story had begun with slow English, careful English, shared English. But as adaptation accelerated, pace increased. Silence increased too. The irony is that living in America gave us opportunity, but it also tested our emotional endurance. In a culture that celebrates achievement, it is easy to measure success externally. Internal connection is harder to measure. One evening, after a long workday, she said quietly, "We don't talk like before." It was not an accusation. It was an observation. That sentence stayed with me. Neuroscience explains why early relationship stages feel intense. Novelty activates dopamine pathways. Everything feels engaging. Over time, the brain adapts. Stability replaces excitement. To maintain closeness, couples must intentionally create new shared experiences. We had stopped creating them. Our English was now efficient. But efficiency does not create warmth. Before the snow day arrived, before that forced pause, our marriage was stable but stretched. Strong but busy. Functional but quieter. We still loved each other deeply. That was never in question. But we had drifted from intentional communication to logistical coordination. The foundation was solid. The rhythm needed attention. Looking back, I see how powerful those early evenings were, sitting at a table, repeating simple English sentences, laughing at mistakes, encouraging each other gently. Say it again. Slower. I understand. Those words were small. But they built trust. And maybe that is the hidden lesson for anyone practicing English right now. Simplicity is not weakness. Slow repetition is not embarrassment. Basic sentences can carry deep meaning. Our love story in America did not start with perfect fluency. It started with shared effort. By the time the heavy snowstorm warning appeared on my phone, I did not yet realize how much we needed to return to that simplicity. To slow sentences. To intentional listening. To saying things again, not because we did not understand the words, but because we needed to feel them. The snow was coming. And with it, an unexpected opportunity to rebuild something that had quietly faded in the noise of achievement. Busy, successful. Distant. Success can look beautiful from the outside. Stable job. Growing savings. Children adjusting well in school. Confident English in meetings. On paper, everything was moving in the right direction. Inside the house, something quieter was shifting. After a few years in the United States, our life became structured around schedules. Morning alarms. School drop-offs. Commutes through winter traffic. Back-to-back meetings. Grocery runs squeezed between obligations. Even weekends had agendas. At first, this structure felt responsible. Organized families are successful families, right? But structure without breathing space slowly turns into pressure. In American work culture, productivity is often rewarded with more responsibility. I accepted extra projects. I stayed available online longer. I told myself it was temporary, just until we reached the next milestone. A better position. More financial security. A stronger foundation. My English grew sharper in professional environments. I could present confidently. Negotiate clearly. Respond quickly. I understood humor in meetings. I used phrases naturally. From the outside, my integration looked complete. But fluency at work did not automatically translate into warmth at home. Evenings became short exchanges. How was your day? Busy. Me too. The children shared stories from school, but sometimes I listened halfway. My mind was still replaying unfinished tasks. Research from cognitive psychology shows that when attention remains partially engaged in unresolved work, emotional responsiveness decreases. It is called attentional residue. Part of your brain stays behind. That residue followed me home. Marriage under pressure rarely explodes dramatically. More often, it fades quietly. Not because love disappears, but because energy runs low. My wife carried her own load. Managing the household. Supporting the children. Adjusting culturally in ways that were less visible but equally demanding. We respected each other deeply. We trusted each other. But we stopped asking deeper questions. Not intentionally. Just gradually. There is a concept in family therapy called parallel lives. Couples operate side by side, efficiently managing responsibilities, but rarely intersect emotionally. We were not fighting. We were functioning. And functioning can disguise distance. American society celebrates independence. Children are encouraged to self-manage. Parents juggle multiple roles. Achievement becomes a common language. In that rhythm, slowing down can feel unproductive. Sometimes I would come home late. The house was quiet. Lights dim. Everyone asleep. I would stand in the kitchen for a moment, feeling proud of the work accomplished, and strangely disconnected at the same time. One evening, my wife said softly, "We are doing well. But we don't feel close." That sentence did not accuse. It reflected. Studies in marital research show that emotional closeness depends less on grand gestures and more on daily micro-interactions, eye contact, shared laughter, small conversations without devices. When those moments decrease, couples report feeling distant even in stable relationships. Our micro-interactions had thinned. Even our English practice changed. Instead of reading together, we consumed information separately. Podcasts with headphones. Articles on phones. Efficiency replaced shared learning. Ironically, language learning thrives on connection. The brain retains information more effectively when practiced in social interaction. Conversation activates multiple neural networks, memory, emotion, auditory processing. Practicing alone is helpful. Practicing together builds meaning. We had unintentionally removed that layer. Winter intensified everything. Shorter daylight hours. Colder mornings. Less spontaneous outdoor activity. Research on seasonal patterns indicates that reduced sunlight can lower mood and energy levels. Subtle fatigue becomes normal. Under those conditions, it is easy to prioritize survival tasks over emotional nourishment. One night, while reviewing emails at the dining table, I noticed something small but telling. My child was drawing quietly nearby. At some point, they stopped and looked at me, waiting for attention. I nodded without looking up. A few minutes later, they went to another room. It was not dramatic. It was ordinary. And that is what made it powerful. Distance does not announce itself loudly. It builds through ordinary missed moments. In professional spaces, I was fully present. Alert. Engaged. Responsive. At home, I was responsible, but sometimes distracted. Success had a cost. Not financial. Relational. The irony is that everything I was working for, stability, opportunity, security, already existed in some form. But I kept accelerating as if something urgent was always ahead. Achievement culture can create a psychological illusion, the belief that closeness will happen naturally once goals are completed. In reality, closeness requires intention during the process. Before the snowstorm warning appeared, our marriage was not broken. It was stretched. Like elastic pulled tight, strong, but under tension. We loved each other. We respected each other. But we were tired. And tired people often communicate less. Looking back, I see that busyness felt productive because it was measurable. Emotional connection felt intangible, harder to track, easier to postpone. The American dream had given us opportunity. It had also quietly tested our ability to protect our time. Then came the weather alert. Winter storm warning. Heavy snowfall expected. Stay off the roads. Schools closed. Work delayed. An external force stronger than ambition was about to press pause on our routine. At that moment, I did not fully understand what we needed. But I sensed it. We were successful. We were stable. And somehow, we were distant. The snow was coming. And with it, an interruption that would force us to confront not our careers, but our connection. When English felt heavy. There was a time when practicing English felt exciting, like unlocking doors in a new world. Then, slowly, it started to feel heavy. Not difficult in the academic sense. Not impossible. Just emotionally heavy. After years of living and working in the United States, my English was functional, even strong in professional contexts. I could lead meetings. Write clear emails. Understand fast conversations. On paper, I had achieved what I once dreamed of. So why did I sometimes feel tired of the language I worked so hard to learn? The answer surprised me. Language had shifted from connection to performance. In the beginning, English felt like discovery. I listened to simple stories slowly. I repeated sentences out loud. I allowed myself to make mistakes. Mistakes were part of growth. Later, English became efficiency. I wanted to understand everything immediately. If I missed a phrase in a fast conversation, frustration appeared. If I needed someone to repeat themselves, I felt embarrassed. That emotional shift changed everything. Cognitive science explains this clearly. When learning is driven by curiosity, dopamine increases motivation and retention. When learning is driven by pressure or fear of judgment, cortisol rises, and performance decreases. My brain was no longer exploring. It was defending. At work, speed mattered. Responses had to be quick. Clarity had to be sharp. There was no space to pause and say, "Let me think about that sentence." Over time, that urgency followed me home. Even casual conversations started to feel like small tests. And here is something important. Mental fatigue reduces language processing capacity. Studies in applied linguistics show that bilingual individuals under stress require more cognitive energy to process the same level of language input. Stress does not make you less intelligent. It simply occupies bandwidth. Bandwidth was limited. There were evenings when I opened a book to practice listening or reading, and closed it 5 minutes later. Not because I did not care. Because I was drained. Have you noticed how the brain reacts when overwhelmed? It avoids effortful tasks. It chooses passive scrolling instead of active practice. That is not laziness. It is neurological conservation. But at the time, I interpreted it as weakness. I told myself, "You should be better by now." That sentence is dangerous. Self-criticism reduces intrinsic motivation. Psychologist Kristin Neff's research on self-compassion shows that harsh internal dialogue actually lowers persistence. Encouragement sustains effort longer than pressure. Yet I was pressuring myself. English felt heavier because it was attached to identity. I was not just learning vocabulary. I was proving competence. I was proving belonging. Immigrants often carry this invisible weight. Speaking well becomes symbolic of integration. Mistakes feel amplified. One small mispronunciation in a professional meeting can echo in your mind for hours, even if no one else noticed. That mental replay consumes energy. At home, the heaviness extended into family conversations. I sometimes simplified discussions not because my English was limited, but because my energy was. Instead of sharing deeper thoughts, I defaulted to short responses. "It's fine. We'll handle it. Don't worry." Language became minimal. And minimal language reduces emotional nuance. There is also something fascinating about repetition and boredom. Neuroscience tells us the brain craves novelty. When tasks feel repetitive without emotional reward, dopamine decreases. Learning stagnates. My English practice had become repetitive without joy. Listen. Repeat. Move on. No emotional context. No shared laughter. No storytelling. Without meaning, even progress feels flat. One evening, before the snowstorm warning, I sat at the kitchen table trying to focus on a listening exercise. Outside, winter wind hit the windows. Inside, the house was quiet. After 10 minutes, I realized I had replayed the same sentence 3 times without absorbing it. My mind was elsewhere. Thinking about deadlines. Thinking about responsibilities. thinking about whether all this effort was worth it. That thought scared me. Was I losing motivation? Or was I losing connection to why I started? Language learning experts often emphasize consistency. Practice daily. Repeat often. Stay disciplined. But they also emphasize emotional engagement. Stories improve retention because they activate memory networks tied to emotion. When we attach language to personal narrative, comprehension deepens. I had removed narrative from my learning. English became a tool, not a bridge. Meanwhile, emotional distance at home mirrored the fatigue. Shorter conversations. Less curiosity. More silence. There is a psychological phenomenon called ego depletion. When you spend energy managing professional performance, self-control, and adaptation, fewer resources remain for emotional presence. By the time evening arrived, I had little left. And here is the truth. When English feels heavy, it is rarely about grammar. It is about pressure. Pressure to succeed. Pressure to represent yourself well. Pressure to justify the sacrifice of relocation. Under that weight, even simple sentences feel like tasks. The snowstorm alert appeared the next morning. Winter storm warning. Stay home. Everything paused. At that moment, I did not know that the heaviness I felt, in language, in marriage, in daily rhythm, was about to be interrupted. Snow does something interesting. It forces stillness. And sometimes, stillness is exactly what an overloaded brain needs to reset. Before the snow began to fall thick and steady, I stood by the window and felt something shift. Maybe English did not need to be faster. Maybe life did not need to be busier. Maybe what felt heavy was not the language itself, but the way I was carrying it. The storm was coming. And with it, an unexpected chance to relearn something simple. How to speak. How to listen. And how to stay. The snowstorm warning. The alert sound on my phone was sharp, almost dramatic, the kind of tone that makes you look up immediately. Winter storm warning. Heavy snowfall expected. Travel strongly discouraged. In the United States, weather alerts are taken seriously. Local news stations switch to live coverage. Schools send early emails. Employers update policies. There is a system. Clear communication. Preparation. I stood in the kitchen reading the notification twice. Snow was not new to us. We had lived through several winters already. But this forecast was different. Meteorologists were predicting record accumulation. Roads could close. Visibility would drop. Power outages were possible. In American culture, extreme weather is handled with organization. Grocery stores become crowded the night before a storm. Shelves empty quickly, milk, bread, bottled water. Neighbors shovel driveways in advance. People prepare. Preparation gives a sense of control. But beneath that practical layer, something else was happening inside me. My first reaction was logistical. Check work policy. Confirm remote access. Review calendar. Move meetings if needed. My brain immediately shifted into productivity mode. Then another notification appeared. School district, closed tomorrow due to snow. The children cheered from the living room when they heard the news. Snow day, they shouted, excited in the way only children can be. Snow day. 2 simple words. I walked into the living room. The television displayed a weather map covered in white and blue. The meteorologist spoke confidently about inches, wind speed, freezing temperatures. My wife looked at me and smiled slightly. Looks like we're staying home. Staying home. That phrase felt heavier than the forecast. Here is something interesting about routine. Behavioral psychology shows that predictable schedules create cognitive comfort. The brain conserves energy when patterns remain stable. Interruptions, even positive ones, require adjustment. The storm was about to interrupt everything. No commute. No school drop-off. No external errands. No escape into normal rhythm. For a moment, I considered setting up my laptop early. I could treat it like any other remote workday. Stay productive. Maintain momentum. But the tone in the house was different. The children were already planning snow activities. They talked about building something in the yard. They debated whether the snow would be deep enough. Their excitement contrasted with my internal tension. Weather events do something symbolic. They remind us that nature operates on a scale larger than human schedules. No matter how organized we are, snow falls when it wants. That loss of control can feel uncomfortable, especially for someone used to planning. Later that evening, as the first flakes began to fall, the neighborhood grew quiet. Cars moved more slowly. Porch lights reflected softly against the white ground. The air felt heavier, muted. Inside, we prepared like everyone else. Charged devices. Checked flashlights. Set thermostats carefully. It felt responsible. But emotionally, something was shifting too. I realized that this storm was not just changing transportation plans. It was creating forced proximity. In modern American life, proximity does not always equal presence. Families can live under one roof but move in separate rhythms. Work, school, activities, each person operating on their own schedule. A snowstorm removes those layers. Research on environmental psychology shows that extreme weather events often increase family interaction. When external options decrease, internal interaction rises. Some families experience tension. Others experience connection. It depends on what has been neglected. That night, as snow accumulated steadily outside, I felt both anticipation and uncertainty. Would this be peaceful? Or awkward? Would we relax? Or retreat into separate screens? I glanced at my laptop on the table. Then at my family sitting together watching snowflakes fall. The heaviness I had felt about English. The quiet distance in our marriage. The fatigue from constant productivity, all of it seemed to hover in the air, waiting. The forecast predicted 12 inches by morning. 12 inches of interruption. Culturally, Americans often describe snow days as unexpected gifts. But gifts are only meaningful if received intentionally. Otherwise, they become delays. My wife asked gently, Are you working tomorrow? The question was simple. But the answer required more than logistics. I paused. Weather alerts are external warnings. Sometimes they expose internal ones. I had been moving quickly for years. Adjusting. Achieving. Improving. Providing. Now, the storm was asking something different. Slow down. Stay inside. Be present. Meteorologists use precise models to predict storms. But there is no model that predicts what happens inside a family when everything stops. Outside, snow thickened. Wind brushed against the windows. Streetlights glowed through falling white. Inside, the house felt smaller, not physically, but emotionally. Like the walls were bringing us closer. That night before bed, I checked the forecast one more time. Heavy snowfall until morning. Roads unsafe. Stay home if possible. The message repeated across every platform. Stay home. For the first time in a long while, the decision about the next day did not depend on ambition or deadlines. It depended on choice. The storm would arrive regardless. The question was not whether snow would fall. The question was how we would respond to the pause it created. By morning, everything outside would be covered in white. Clean. Quiet. Still. And inside that stillness, we were about to confront something we had postponed for too long. Time. Together. A snow day begins. Morning arrived without an alarm clock. The usual rush, quick showers, packed lunches, traffic updates, was replaced by silence. When I opened the curtains, the world outside had transformed. Cars were buried halfway in snow. Trees stood heavy and white. The street looked untouched, like a blank page. Inside the house, something felt unfamiliar. Stillness. No one was running late. No one was checking the time. The only sound was the heater humming softly and the children whispering excitedly in the hallway. "Look how much snow," one of them shouted. They pressed their faces against the window, amazed. I stood there holding my phone, out of habit. Emails had already started arriving. Notifications blinking quietly. The outside world was still moving, just more slowly. For a moment, I felt the old instinct rising. Open the laptop. Stay productive. Use the time wisely. Productivity culture runs deep in America. Even unexpected breaks can feel like opportunities to catch up. Psychologists call this internalized urgency, the feeling that rest must be justified. But something about the snow changed the atmosphere. It did not feel like a normal work-from-home day. It felt like a rare interruption. A natural pause that did not ask permission. My wife walked into the living room, wrapped in a blanket, smiling in that relaxed way I had not seen in a while. "Let's just enjoy today," she said. Just enjoy today. Simple words. Clear. Gentle. I looked at the laptop again. Then I closed it. That small action felt bigger than expected. Behavioral science suggests that micro-decisions shape identity. Closing the laptop was not just skipping a few emails. It was choosing presence over performance. The children quickly moved into planning mode. Can we build a snowman? Can we make hot chocolate? Can we stay in pajamas? Their energy filled the house. At first, there was a slight awkwardness. We were together, but out of routine. Normally, mornings were divided. Now, we were sharing the same space without structure. Unstructured time can feel uncomfortable for adults. Without a task, the brain searches for one. But children adapt instantly. They do not need productivity to feel valid. We stepped outside carefully, boots crunching into deep snow. The air was sharp and cold, but clean. Breath visible. The sky bright despite the clouds. Snow has a strange emotional effect. It softens sound. It slows movement. Even neighborhoods seem quieter. Environmental psychologists note that snow reduces sensory overload, fewer cars, fewer noises, fewer distractions. Standing there in the yard, helping shape the first large snowball, I noticed something. I was not thinking about work. I was not replaying conversations in English. I was not analyzing anything. I was simply present. The children laughed when the snow collapsed unexpectedly. My wife tried to fix the shape. We argued playfully about whether the snowman needed a hat. Put the scarf higher, she said. No, it looks better this way, I replied. Our conversation was light. Casual. Not strategic. For the first time in months, we were speaking slowly without rushing to the next task. After about an hour, our hands were freezing. We went back inside, cheeks red, boots wet, energy high. Hot chocolate steamed on the kitchen counter. The smell felt comforting. Familiar. We sat around the table together. No one in a hurry. And that was when I realized something important. Silence between us was no longer heavy. It was calm. Research on family systems shows that shared leisure time increases relational satisfaction more effectively than structured obligations. The brain associates positive emotion with the people present during relaxed moments. We had not had enough relaxed moments. Sitting there, I asked casually, what should we do next? Normally, I would not ask that question. Normally, the day was already decided. The children suggested board games. My wife suggested cooking something special for lunch. We chose both. And here is something unexpected. During those small activities, English returned to its simple form. Your turn. Be careful. Pass me the spoon. Basic phrases. Everyday language. But this time, they felt warm. Language learning experts often emphasize immersion. But immersion does not always mean complex vocabulary. It means natural context. Real emotion attached to words. That morning, English felt lighter. Not because it was easier. Because it was shared. At one point, while mixing ingredients in the kitchen, my wife looked at me and said softly, "It feels good, doesn't it?" I knew exactly what she meant. It felt good not to rush. It felt good not to perform. It felt good to stay. The snow outside continued to fall gently, but the storm inside, the busyness, the pressure, the distance, had quieted. The forced pause was no longer uncomfortable. It was necessary. By midday, the house felt warmer than usual. Not because of the heater. Because of attention. I began to see that the snowstorm had done something unexpected. It removed options. And when options disappear, priorities become visible. Emails could wait. Deadlines could shift. But this moment, this rare stillness, could not be postponed. The snow day had officially begun. And we were finally in it. Together. Simple English, real feelings. By the afternoon, something subtle had changed in the house. The excitement of the first snowfall had softened into warmth. Boots were drying near the door. Wet gloves rested on the heater. The kitchen smelled like soup and cocoa. Outside, the snow kept falling steadily, covering the world in quiet white. Inside, our conversations began to stretch. Not dramatically. Not with deep speeches. Just small sentences, spoken slowly. Are you cold? Do you want more? That was fun. Simple English. Everyday words. But this time, they carried weight. There is a reason language teachers encourage beginners to use basic sentences confidently. Emotional clarity does not require complex grammar. In fact, research in communication psychology shows that sincerity is perceived more through tone and eye contact than vocabulary complexity. That afternoon, tone mattered more than perfection. We sat on the living room floor playing a board game. No phones. No background television. Just laughter and occasional debate over the rules. Wait, that's not fair, my child protested. It is fair, I replied, smiling. Read the instructions again. Normally, such small interactions would pass quickly. But in that stillness, they felt fuller. I noticed something fascinating. When we slowed our speech, we listened better. When we listened better, we responded more thoughtfully. The pace of language shaped the pace of emotion. Neuroscience supports this. Slower speech patterns can reduce stress responses. When conversation tempo decreases, heart rate stabilizes. The nervous system shifts toward regulation rather than urgency. In other words, simple English was calming us. At one point, my wife looked at me and said gently, I miss days like this. That sentence stopped me. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was honest. I responded without thinking too much, me too. And in that brief exchange, something real reopened. The beauty of everyday language is that it removes performance. There is no pressure to impress. No need to sound advanced. Just clarity. I began to realize how much of my English use in recent years had been performance-based. Presentations. Professional tone. Efficiency. Here, in the living room, English returned to connection. Later, we decided to cook together. The children helped measure ingredients. Flour spilled. Someone laughed too loudly. Music played softly in the background. Pass the salt. Careful, it's hot. Good job. These are the kinds of phrases language learners practice in textbooks. But textbooks cannot teach the warmth behind them. Language learning research emphasizes contextual memory. Words learned in emotional situations are retained more deeply. The hippocampus encodes memory more effectively when emotion is present. That afternoon, English words attached themselves to laughter. They attached themselves to eye contact. They attached themselves to warmth. And something else happened. We started sharing stories. Not dramatic stories. Just small memories. The first winter we experienced in America. The apartment we lived in when everything felt new. The mistakes we made when trying to understand cultural habits. We laughed about misunderstandings. We corrected each other playfully. "Remember when you said that wrong word?" she teased. "Yes, and everyone stared at me," I replied. The embarrassment no longer felt heavy. It felt distant. Almost funny. Emotional reframing is powerful. Psychologists explain that when past stress is revisited in a safe environment, its emotional intensity decreases. What once felt painful becomes narrative. And narrative heals. At some point, one of the children asked, "Why don't we stay home like this more often?" The room became quiet. It was an innocent question. But it exposed something important. We had allowed busyness to define normal. Togetherness had become special, instead of routine. I answered slowly, choosing words carefully. Sometimes we forget to slow down. That was true. In America, slowing down can feel countercultural. Productivity is admired. Movement is expected. Achievement is visible. Stillness is quiet. And quiet moments rarely appear on resumes. But they build something deeper. By early evening, snow had stopped falling. The sky cleared slightly. The neighborhood looked peaceful. Streetlights reflected softly off the white ground. Inside, the house felt connected. We were not discussing future goals. We were not analyzing finances. We were simply present. And English, the language that once felt heavy, now felt light. Because it was no longer carrying ambition alone. It was carrying affection. There is a difference between speaking to be understood and speaking to be felt. That day, we chose the second. Before bedtime, as we cleaned up the kitchen, my wife said quietly, "We needed this." She was right. The snow day had forced us to pause. But what happened inside that pause was our choice. We chose conversation. We chose simplicity. We chose each other. And in the quiet rhythm of simple English, slow, imperfect, honest, we rediscovered something we had almost lost. Not fluency. Not success. Connection. Slow English story for listening practice, family, burnout, and starting over. The hardest part about almost giving up is not the failure. It's the silence. The quiet voice in your head that whispers, "Maybe this just isn't for you." For months, that voice followed me everywhere. It followed me to work in the United States, where I smiled at customers but felt invisible. It followed me home, where my family sat at the dinner table while I scrolled on my phone, too tired to talk. It followed me at night, when I opened my English notebook, and then closed it again 5 minutes later. If you're here because you feel exhausted, unmotivated, or stuck in your English learning journey, I want you to know something: you're not lazy. You're overwhelmed. In this final part of my story, I want to share what truly changed everything for me. Not a new job, not a big opportunity, not some miracle success. It was something much smaller and much more powerful. It was presence. After the snow day that forced my family to stay home together, something shifted. The world outside was quiet. Roads were closed. Work emails stopped. The pressure paused. And in that stillness, I realized something uncomfortable. I had been physically present for my family, but emotionally absent. I told myself I was working hard for them. But when my son asked me to play, I said, later. When my wife tried to talk about her day, I nodded without listening. When I studied English, I rushed through lessons just to say I did it. I wasn't living. I was surviving. And survival mode is dangerous. Because it feels productive, but it slowly disconnects you from the people and goals you care about most. That snow day became our reset button. We cooked simple food together. We laughed when we burned the pancakes. We sat on the floor and played board games. No big speeches. No dramatic apologies. Just time. Time is the most underrated gift in modern life. That night, after everyone went to bed, I opened my English notebook again. But this time, I didn't study to improve my career. I didn't study to prove myself. I studied to tell my story. I wrote one simple sentence. Today I stayed home with my family because of snow. That was it. One honest sentence. Then I wrote another. I realized I have been too busy to notice what matters. And slowly, something returned. Not motivation. Not ambition. Connection. English stopped feeling like pressure. It became expression. Instead of memorizing difficult vocabulary, I described my real day. Instead of watching complicated grammar videos, I practiced speaking about my feelings. Instead of chasing perfection, I focused on clarity. If you are learning English in the United States, or anywhere in the world, this is something important. Language grows faster when it carries emotion. When you connect English to your real experiences, your brain remembers more. Your confidence builds naturally. Your pronunciation improves because you actually care about what you're saying. I stopped asking, how can I sound perfect? I started asking, how can I be understood? That small change removed so much stress. At work, I spoke slower. I allowed mistakes. I asked simple questions without embarrassment. And something surprising happened. People responded with patience and kindness. The fear I carried for years existed mostly inside me. At home, I set one simple rule. When I walked through the door, my phone stayed in my bag for the first hour. That hour became sacred. We talked. We cooked. We sometimes sat quietly. But we were together. Burnout doesn't disappear overnight. It fades when your daily habits change. I reduced my study time from 1 exhausting hour to 20 focused minutes. I replaced self-criticism with curiosity. I stopped comparing my progress to others on YouTube. Comparison is the fastest way to kill motivation. Your English journey is personal. Your pace is valid. Your struggles are human. Over time, the voice in my head changed. Instead of saying, maybe this isn't for you, it started saying, you're improving, even if it's slow. That's when I understood something powerful. Quitting doesn't usually happen because we are incapable. It happens because we are disconnected. Disconnected from purpose. Disconnected from people. Disconnected from ourselves. If you are watching this and thinking about giving up on English, on your goals, on something important, pause before you decide. Ask yourself one question. Am I truly failing, or am I simply tired? There is a difference. Tired people need rest, not resignation. What saved me was not a big motivational speech. It was a snow day. A forced pause. A reminder that life is happening right now, not after success, not after fluency, not after achievement. Right now. Today, my English is still not perfect. I still make grammar mistakes. I still search for words sometimes. But I am present. Present at work. Present with my family. Present in my learning. And presence changed everything. If this story resonated with you, I hope you take one small action today. Not a huge goal. Not a dramatic transformation. Just one honest sentence. Open a notebook. Write about your day in simple English. Speak it out loud. Record yourself if you can. Let your English carry your real life. Because language is not just about passing tests or getting better jobs. It's about connection. It's about being heard. It's about not feeling alone in a new country or a difficult season of life. You are not behind. You are not weak. You are not alone. If this slow English story helped you practice listening and feel encouraged, stay with this channel. We learn English through real life, real emotions, and real stories. And maybe, just maybe, the thing you think is slowing you down is actually the pause that will save you. Keep going. But also, don't forget to look up. Final reflection, slow English listening practice story about burnout, family and never giving up. There was a moment I almost ended everything. Not my life, but my effort. I almost stopped trying to improve my English. I almost stopped believing that my life in the United States could feel meaningful. I almost accepted that exhaustion was just how adulthood works. And that quiet surrender scared me more than failure ever did. Because failure still means you tried. Giving up means you disconnected from hope. If you have stayed with me through this full story, from burnout, to snow days, to rebuilding family connection, then this final part is for you. This is where everything becomes clear. The biggest lie I believed was this. Once I become fluent in English, everything will feel easier. I thought better pronunciation would fix my confidence. I thought stronger vocabulary would fix my stress. I thought career success would fix my family distance. But fluency cannot repair emotional absence. Grammar cannot replace presence. And success cannot heal burnout. Burnout is not about working too hard. It's about working without meaning. When I first moved to the United States, I had so much motivation. Every new word felt exciting. Every conversation felt like progress. Even mistakes felt like steps forward. But over time, responsibility grew. Bills, deadlines, expectations, family pressure, self-comparison. And slowly, English stopped being a bridge. It became a burden. If you are learning English for immigrants, for work, for better opportunities, or for personal growth, you know this pressure. You want to improve fast. You want to sound natural. You want to feel confident speaking English. But when progress feels slow, discouragement grows loud. I started measuring my worth by my improvement speed. That was my mistake. Growth is not linear. Some seasons are for building. Some seasons are for resting. Some seasons are simply for surviving. That snow day we experienced earlier in this story, the one that kept us home, was not just weather. It was interruption. And interruption forced reflection. Reflection forced honesty. I had to admit that I wasn't tired of English. I was tired of chasing validation. There is a big difference. When you study English to impress others, you burn out faster. When you study English to connect, you last longer. After that realization, I made 3 changes that transformed everything. First, I changed my goal. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent, I said, I want to express my real thoughts clearly. That shift reduced pressure immediately. Second, I changed my method. Instead of memorizing random vocabulary lists, I practiced storytelling. I described my day. I talked about my emotions. I recorded myself speaking slowly and listened back. Slow English practice improved my listening skills naturally. It improved my pronunciation without stress. It improved my confidence because the content was personal. Third, I changed my definition of success. Success was no longer perfect English. Success became consistent effort without self-hate. That change saved me. And here is something I want you to truly understand if you are watching this as part of your English listening practice. Your accent does not reduce your value. Your mistakes do not erase your intelligence. Your slow progress does not mean failure. Language learning is emotional. Especially when you live in an English-speaking country. Every mistake feels public. Every hesitation feels exposed. But confidence grows through exposure, not avoidance. When I allowed myself to speak imperfect English at work, conversations became easier. Not because my grammar magically improved overnight, but because fear decreased. Fear consumes energy. Confidence releases it. At home, things changed too. I became intentional with my time. 1 hour of real connection is more powerful than 5 distracted hours in the same room. We created small traditions. Cooking together once a week. Movie night without phones. 10 minutes of sharing one good thing from today. Simple habits rebuild emotional closeness. And something beautiful happened. My motivation to learn English returned naturally. Not because I forced it, but because my life felt aligned again. Burnout often comes from misalignment. You say family matters, but you give them leftover energy. You say growth matters, but you study while exhausted. You say health matters, but you ignore rest. Alignment restores peace. Now, when I practice English listening through stories like this, it feels different. It feels calm. It feels intentional. It feels human. That is what I want this channel to represent, real-life English practice. Not perfection. Not pressure. Not performance. If you are still here at part 10, I believe something in this story connected with you. Maybe you are tired. Maybe you are discouraged. Maybe you are balancing work, family, and English learning just like I was. I want to leave you with this truth. You do not need a dramatic life change. You need small daily honesty. Ask yourself tonight, what am I truly chasing? And what am I quietly neglecting? Then take one small step toward alignment. Send one message to someone you love. Study English for 20 focused minutes instead of 2 distracted hours. Forgive yourself for yesterday's mistakes. Progress built with self-compassion lasts longer than progress built with pressure. I am still learning. Still improving. Still making mistakes. But I am no longer surviving my life. I am living it. And if you are on the edge of quitting, whether it is English, a dream, or a personal goal, pause. Rest if you need to. But don't disconnect from yourself. Because the version of you who keeps going gently, consistently, imperfectly, is stronger than the version who demands perfection. Thank you for listening to this full slow English story. Keep practicing your English listening skills. Keep speaking, even if your voice shakes. Keep building your life with intention. You are not behind. You are becoming. And that is enough. Closing chapter. There is something nobody tells you about chasing a better life in the United States. The hardest battles are not outside. They are inside your mind. You can survive long work hours. You can survive financial pressure. You can survive language barriers. But surviving your own self-doubt every single day? That is the real challenge. By the time I reached this stage in my journey, nothing around me had changed dramatically. I still worked the same job. I still spoke imperfect English. I still had responsibilities waiting for me every morning. But something inside me had shifted. And that internal shift changed everything. For a long time, I believed resilience meant pushing harder. Sleeping less. Studying more. Ignoring emotions. Proving strength through exhaustion. That belief nearly broke me. Real resilience is quieter. It looks like choosing not to criticize yourself after a mistake. It sounds like speaking up even when your pronunciation is not perfect. It feels like forgiving yourself for feeling tired. If you are using this video for English listening practice, I want you to notice something. You are already resilient. You are here. You are trying. You are improving, even if it feels slow. When I look back at the version of myself who almost quit, I don't see weakness anymore. I see a person who was overwhelmed and didn't know how to rest properly. Rest is not quitting. Rest is preparation. One evening, months after that snow day changed our family rhythm, I sat at the dinner table with my wife and son. There was nothing special about the night. No celebration. No dramatic conversation. Just normal life. But I felt present. I listened fully. I laughed easily. I shared a story from work in simple English, and even though I searched for a few words, I didn't feel embarrassed. That moment mattered more than any grammar test result. Because confidence is not built in classrooms. It is built in lived experiences. If you are learning English in America or anywhere else in the world, your daily life is your greatest classroom. Every grocery store conversation. Every phone call. Every small talk moment at work. These are not interruptions to learning. They are the learning. For years, I separated studying English from living my life. That separation made everything harder. When I combined them, everything became lighter. Now, when I drive home from work, I practice speaking out loud about my day. Slowly. Clearly. Without rushing. When I watch movies with my family, I focus on listening for meaning, not understanding every single word. When I feel frustrated, I describe that frustration in English instead of hiding it. Language became integrated into my life, not added as pressure on top of it. And something surprising happened. My progress improved naturally. Not because I forced it, but because I removed resistance. Burnout thrives in resistance. Growth thrives in alignment. There is one more lesson this journey taught me, and I believe it may be the most important one. You cannot build a peaceful future while fighting yourself every day. For a long time, my inner voice was harsh. You should be better by now. Your English is still not good enough. Other people are moving faster. That voice sounded responsible. Motivated. Ambitious. But it was destructive. When I replaced it with something softer, not lazy, just supportive, my consistency improved. Instead of saying, "You failed today," I began saying, "You tried today. Try again tomorrow." Small difference. Huge impact. If you are watching this as part of your slow English story listening routine, I want to encourage you to repeat one sentence after this video ends. I am improving at my own pace. Say it out loud. Feel it. Because comparison is one of the fastest ways to lose motivation in language learning. On YouTube, you will see fluent speakers, perfect accents, fast progress stories. But you do not see their doubts, their setbacks, their silent struggles. Your journey is valid even if it is quiet. And quiet growth is still growth. Today, my English is far from perfect. I still pause. I still mispronounce words. I still need subtitles sometimes. But I am no longer afraid of learning publicly. I am no longer ashamed of trying. And most importantly, I am no longer disconnected from the reason I started. I wanted to build a stable, meaningful life for my family. I wanted to communicate confidently. I wanted to feel capable in a new country. Those goals remain. But now they are supported by balance. Work matters. Family matters. Health matters. Learning matters. None of them can replace the others. If one dominates completely, burnout returns. As we close this chapter of the story, I want to leave you with a final reflection. If you feel stuck right now, ask yourself, are you truly incapable, or are you simply exhausted? Exhaustion can be healed. Incapability is often just fear in disguise. Take smaller steps. Shorter study sessions. More realistic expectations. More kindness toward yourself. Consistency built with compassion will carry you further than intensity built with pressure. This slow English listening journey was never just about vocabulary or grammar. It was about resilience. It was about connection. It was about choosing not to give up when quitting feels easier. If this story helped you practice English listening and feel less alone, stay with this channel. Continue learning through real stories, real emotions, and real-life experiences. You are not behind. You are building something meaningful, step by step, word by word. And even if progress feels invisible today, trust this. The version of you who keeps showing up gently, imperfectly, consistently, is already winning. Final. This is the part of the story where everything becomes quiet. No dramatic turning point. No sudden success. No perfect ending. Just clarity. When I first began sharing this journey about burnout, family distance, and learning English in the United States, I thought the ending would be about achievement. A promotion. Fluent conversations. A big visible win. But that's not what happened. Instead, I found something better. Stability. And stability is not exciting. It doesn't look impressive on social media. It doesn't create viral moments. But it builds strong lives. For a long time, I believed my confidence would arrive the day my English became fluent. I believed I would finally relax once I stopped making grammar mistakes. I believed happiness was waiting on the other side of good enough. But confidence did not arrive with perfection. It arrived with acceptance. The day I stopped fighting my level, I started improving faster. That sounds strange, but it's true. When you constantly tell yourself that you are behind, your brain connects learning with stress. Stress blocks memory. Stress increases fear. Fear slows speech. But when you allow yourself to be a learner, openly, honestly, your mind relaxes. And a relaxed mind absorbs more language. If you are watching this video for English listening practice, remember this: progress grows in calm environments. You do not need to pressure yourself into fluency. You need consistency. 20 focused minutes of slow English listening each day is more powerful than 2 overwhelmed hours once a week. Recording yourself speaking simple sentences about your real life is more effective than memorizing complex vocabulary you never use. And living fully in English, even imperfectly, builds confidence faster than hiding until you feel ready. I used to wait until I felt ready. Ready to speak more. Ready to apply for better opportunities. Ready to believe in myself. But readiness is often an illusion. Action creates readiness. The more I spoke at work, the more comfortable I became. The more I expressed emotions in English, the clearer my thoughts became. The more I accepted mistakes, the fewer mistakes controlled me. Mistakes are teachers. Embarrassment is temporary. Growth is permanent if you continue. There were still difficult days. Days when work felt heavy. Days when family conversations were tense. Days when English felt confusing again. But those days no longer convinced me to quit. Because quitting used to be my emotional escape. Whenever I felt overwhelmed, my mind whispered, maybe stop trying. Maybe this is too much. Now, when that voice appears, I respond differently. I say, I'm tired. I need rest. Not surrender. That distinction changed my life. Rest renews strength. Surrender removes possibility. If you are balancing work, family, and English learning, you are carrying a lot. Give yourself credit for that. It is not easy to build a life in another language. It requires courage daily. Ordering food. Answering phone calls. Attending meetings. Helping your children with homework. Every one of these moments requires effort. So if you feel exhausted sometimes, that does not mean you are weak. It means you are trying. And trying matters. Over time, I realized something powerful. My family did not need perfect English from me. They needed presence. My coworkers did not expect flawless pronunciation. They expected communication. The world does not demand perfection as much as we imagine. Often, we are the ones creating impossible standards. Today, my English is stronger than before. My listening skills improved through slow storytelling. My speaking confidence grew through daily practice. My pronunciation is clearer because I stopped rushing. But the greatest improvement was internal. I trust myself more. I trust that I can handle discomfort. I trust that I can grow slowly. I trust that my effort compounds over time. Trust removes panic. When panic disappears, clarity arrives. If you are still watching at part 12, I want to thank you for staying through this full slow English story. That already shows dedication. And I want to leave you with 3 simple commitments you can start today. First, speak daily, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Describe your day out loud. Second, listen slowly and repeatedly. Understanding grows through repetition, not speed. Third, replace harsh self-talk with supportive self-coaching. Instead of saying, I'm bad at English, say, I'm improving every week. Small language shifts inside your mind create powerful results outside. This journey was never about becoming perfect. It was about refusing to give up when things felt heavy. It was about rebuilding family connection during burnout. It was about rediscovering purpose inside ordinary days. It was about learning that fluency is not just speaking clearly, it is living clearly. You are allowed to grow at your own pace. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to make mistakes publicly. And you are absolutely capable of building the life you imagined, even if it takes longer than expected. Keep practicing your English listening. Keep speaking bravely. Keep choosing alignment over pressure. Because the person who improves slowly and consistently will always go further than the person who burns out chasing perfection. Your story is still being written. And this chapter, the one where you almost gave up but didn't, may become the most important one of all. Stay steady. Stay patient. And most importantly, stay final. This is the part of the story where everything becomes quiet. No dramatic turning point. No sudden success. No perfect ending. Just clarity. When I first began sharing this journey about burnout, family distance, and learning English in the United States, I thought the ending would be about achievement. A promotion. Fluent conversations. A big visible win. But that's not what happened. Instead, I found something better. Stability. And stability is not exciting. It doesn't look impressive on social media. It doesn't create viral moments. But it builds strong lives. For a long time, I believed my confidence would arrive the day my English became fluent. I believed I would finally relax once I stopped making grammar mistakes. I believed happiness was waiting on the other side of good enough. But confidence did not arrive with perfection. It arrived with acceptance. The day I stopped fighting my level, I started improving faster. That sounds strange, but it's true. When you constantly tell yourself that you are behind, your brain connects learning with stress. Stress blocks memory. Stress increases fear. Fear slows speech. But when you allow yourself to be a learner, openly, honestly, your mind relaxes. And a relaxed mind absorbs more language. If you are watching this video for English listening practice, remember this: progress grows in calm environments. You do not need to pressure yourself into fluency. You need consistency. 20 focused minutes of slow English listening each day is more powerful than 2 overwhelmed hours once a week. Recording yourself speaking simple sentences about your real life is more effective than memorizing complex vocabulary you never use. And living fully in English, even imperfectly, builds confidence faster than hiding until you feel ready. I used to wait until I felt ready. Ready to speak more. Ready to apply for better opportunities. Ready to believe in myself. But readiness is often an illusion. Action creates readiness. The more I spoke at work, the more comfortable I became. The more I expressed emotions in English, the clearer my thoughts became. The more I accepted mistakes, the fewer mistakes controlled me. Mistakes are teachers. Embarrassment is temporary. Growth is permanent if you continue. There were still difficult days. Days when work felt heavy. Days when family conversations were tense. Days when English felt confusing again. But those days no longer convinced me to quit. Because quitting used to be my emotional escape. Whenever I felt overwhelmed, my mind whispered, maybe stop trying. Maybe this is too much. Now, when that voice appears, I respond differently. I say, I'm tired. I need rest. Not surrender. That distinction changed my life. Rest renews strength. Surrender removes possibility. If you are balancing work, family, and English learning, you are carrying a lot. Give yourself credit for that. It is not easy to build a life in another language. It requires courage daily. Ordering food. Answering phone calls. Attending meetings. Helping your children with homework. Every one of these moments requires effort. So if you feel exhausted sometimes, that does not mean you are weak. It means you are trying. And trying matters. Over time, I realized something powerful. My family did not need perfect English from me. They needed presence. My coworkers did not expect flawless pronunciation. They expected communication. The world does not demand perfection as much as we imagine. Often, we are the ones creating impossible standards. Today, my English is stronger than before. My listening skills improved through slow storytelling. My speaking confidence grew through daily practice. My pronunciation is clearer because I stopped rushing. But the greatest improvement was internal. I trust myself more. I trust that I can handle discomfort. I trust that I can grow slowly. I trust that my effort compounds over time. Trust removes panic. When panic disappears, clarity arrives. If you are still watching at part 12, I want to thank you for staying through this full slow English story. That already shows dedication. And I want to leave you with 3 simple commitments you can start today. First, speak daily, even if it's just for 5 minutes. Describe your day out loud. Second, listen slowly and repeatedly. Understanding grows through repetition, not speed. Third, replace harsh self-talk with supportive self-coaching. Instead of saying, "I'm bad at English," say, "I'm improving every week." Small language shifts inside your mind create powerful results outside. This journey was never about becoming perfect. It was about refusing to give up when things felt heavy. It was about rebuilding family connection during burnout. It was about rediscovering purpose inside ordinary days. It was about learning that fluency is not just speaking clearly, it is living clearly. You are allowed to grow at your own pace. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to make mistakes publicly. And you are absolutely capable of building the life you imagined, even if it takes longer than expected. Keep practicing your English listening. Keep speaking bravely. Keep choosing alignment over pressure. Because the person who improves slowly and consistently will always go further than the person who burns out chasing perfection. Your story is still being written. And this chapter, the one where you almost gave up but didn't, may become the most important one of all. Stay steady. Stay patient. And most importantly, stay